Today I want to show you some of the ideas I've used to make some cards using the Couture Creations men's mini stamps, and I've also used the Delightful sentiments with them as well, but there's no foiling on this. Although these are classed as cut, foil and embossed dies, I've used them with some sparkly inks instead for the sentiment. Okay, so that's one of mine and cards, and that uses the pocket watch stamp, or the timepiece stamp. If you look at my blog, you'll find all the correct names and the product codes. But it's a, you know, I'm describing it rather than naming it. It's a pocket watch. So just a little stamp, and I've used that particular stamp to create background for this card. Okay, so that's one of my cards. And then I've also used a pocket watch on this card. Now I created an inky background for this one, and then I've also used some stamps from the Gentleman's Emporium collection. So I've got this corner and this motif here, so those, and then I've got the pocket watches that have been, I've used the same pigment inks as I used to create the background, but just in different colours. So that's that. And then for the sentiment on this one, again, this is using the cut, foil and emboss sentiment dies from the Delightful collection, but again, no foiling. I've cut them in black cardstock and used gilding waxes on them. So that's I'll show you how I do that a bit later in the video. And then the other one I've got is the golfer, which is this little stamp. Now I've actually stamped him onto some white card and I've cut him out, and then on the back I've used a zig glue pen to make the back tacky. So all over I've put the glue that when it dries it stays tacky, and I've made sure it's dried thoroughly then before I've tried to use it with my project. Okay, so he just lives with my stamp for me to reuse. Okay, so on this card I've just stamped him and coloured him in on a little tag to go on there, and I've used papers from the Gentleman's Emporium collection again. And then on this card I wanted a bigger topper, but he was going to look a bit lost just on his own, so I've created a background for him, and I'm going to show you how I've done that. And on this card, again, piece of card, some pigment ink and a slightly wet piece of makeup sponge, and just splodged inks all over the card to make a background. Okay, and then the sentiment on this one is another of the cut, foil and embossed dies, and that's one of the Dazzlia sentiments, and that has been again inked instead of using foil. So let's show you how I do all this. So I'm going to start with my golfer. Okay, so oh, I forgot the tag for this, or the die cut that all it's on. That's also done using a cut, foil and embossed die that creates this coloured line around the edge, and that's part of the Modern Essentials collections. That's the bracket frames nesting die set. So let's get started. So one of the things I'm going to need is to make the mountains, which are these in the background. This is really easy to do, but you just need to make yourself a mask, and all you need is a piece of photocopy paper. I'll say all you need. So, piece of copy paper, I've cut it down to A6. Okay, and I'm using it kind of landscape wise. And you either need a water brush or a paintbrush. So, you know, just a smallish paintbrush. And you want it quite wet. And I'm just going to draw some wiggly zigzag lines. Okay, I'm going to keep wetting the brush. Okay, so just to create some shapes on my paper. I'm not sure I've done those last ones wet enough, so I'm just going to go over them again. And it really is quite random, and you do want to make sure you've made it quite wet. Okay, and the water's just going to let you tear the paper where you want to tear it. Okay, so if you don't like what you've done, I'll get another piece of paper or let it dry and do it again before you tear it. Okay, but while it's wet, all you need to do is just roughly tear along your wet lines. Okay, doesn't have to be accurate. Okay, and that's the piece I'm going to be using because I want to mask off above and use the area below. Okay, or I could turn that piece around and use that piece. Okay, or you can do it with a water brush. So you want quite a good flowing water brush if you're going to use a water brush. They do vary. I've got one I use for colouring that almost no water seems to come out of it, but it's great for colouring. So the advantage of this is you don't have to keep going back and wetting it, of course. I'm going to do some bigger mountains on there. And then I can just tear this along my wet lines. Just very roughly. There we are. So different shapes again. Okay, so I need to leave those to dry before I use them, so which is why I've done that bit first. So let's just put that away. I've got some water on my table, so just wipe that up. Okay, so the next thing I need is the tag. So I've got my die here. Now yours will be shiny silvery ones, but when I got these were sort of the pre-production one. Sorry about that. And it just fallen down behind me. I'll find it later. Okay, so I've got that, and I've got some card to cut it out of here somewhere. And I've got a piece of scrap paper. So what I tend to do is get my cutting plate and put my piece of scrap paper on it, and then I ink up on here. Okay, so it's up to you what colour ink you use. So I've got some Versacolour inks in here. Actually, it comes with a really nice green that might look quite nice for this. Okay, but they're just, I bought a bunch of pigment inks as a bundle, own brand from my local hobby shop. So that they're nothing particularly special, most of them. So you can either go straight on, or you can use an ink blending tool. And I tend to prefer to use an ink blending tool because it smooths out any areas the ink might pool on the die. It's not too bad on these ones because it's just a very small edge. But on the dies with the larger surfaces, it can make a difference. So I am, if you're just going to pick up some ink on my blending tool. Just go around the edges. Like that. Now obviously it's a black die, so I can't actually see how much ink I've put on. Okay. So I might do this and decide I haven't got enough ink, or I can go around with my ink pad very gently because you don't want to damage your ink pad, and then smooth it out with the blending tool. Okay, so that should give me quite good ink coverage on there. And then I'm going to slide the die off the paper. Right, so I'm going to cover it with my card I want to cut. And in fact, I'm going to put it on my base plate first, because I'm actually using a magnetic base plate, so it makes it a bit easier because things don't move about so much. Now, if you're worried about your card moving at this stage, you can just tape it to your bottom cutting plate. And then I want my top plate, and then I'm going to roll it through my die cutting machine. Just turn the camera. So these dies are slightly thicker. Just very slightly thicker than normal cutting dies. And for those of you who watch lots of my videos, you're getting, oh, I thought Joanne always went away to use a die cutting machine. Well, I did, but the magnetic base plate is short enough that I can actually get it out of the back of my die cutting machine when my big shot's on the table here. So that's why I'm now able to do this in front, just sitting at the table. So take that. Usually I leave the plate off my magnetic base. Then I can slide that off. And there we are. It's worked quite nicely, giving me a really neat line around the edge. Let me see if I can get the camera to focus on that for you. There we are. So that's my die cut for my topper done. Okay, and I'm just going to give the die a wipe over with some kitchen paper just to make sure there's no ink left on it. That could make a mess on another piece of card that I don't want ink on. And there we are. No, there's almost nothing on there. So that's that. Okay, so the next thing I need to do is decide where I want my golfer. Now, oops, I've got another version of the topper here, and this was the, well, I'll make a background to stamp him on. The trouble is, it's an outline stamp, so you actually see everything through him, and that wasn't really the effect I want. So that's why I'm using a mask, so that I can put in the background all around him, and then I can colour him afterwards. So I've got my man here, and as I say, he's tacky, so I can decide where I want him and put him down and be sure he'll stay there. I'm going to put him, yeah, about there. So there we are. And if I'm not sure, I can pick, I've got him straight, I can move him, but I think that's okay. Okay, let me find a mask that is dry, the one I used earlier. Oh, there it is. Okay, so as you can see, I've got ink all over that. So I want these mountains kind of in the background behind him. So I'm just going to get some inks. So I actually used, though the mountains look green, I actually used some kind of beige ink and some quite dark blue ink, just from my pigment inks. And there's my blending sponge that I used for those. Obviously, you know, cards are a fantasy thing. These could be any colour you like. I may want some more of the brown. I'll do that. And then I've got some scrap card. Oh, I used the back of this. So I always like to test what colour I'm going to get and take the ink off the edge of the blending tool, because then you don't tend to get harsh lines in what you're doing. So I'm just twiddling it round on this piece of, you know, the back of my veiled topper, and then I can see what colour I'm getting. They're a kind of nice greyish bluish colour. That will do nicely. So I'm just going to hold this down with my fingers and just blend kind of around there. And it doesn't have to be very dark. You just create a light impression of things. So I'm going to move along, and it's a smaller peak, but I'm going to put it higher up. I'm just going to create lots of layers of these. So there we are, you see. So it'll give the impression that he's in front of them. Now, I don't know, you know, where in the world people are. Biggest hill around here is a nice big chalk down. But it's not this kind of a hill. But I loved it when I've had holidays in the Lake District. And when you're standing down by one of the lakes and looking up to the hills that are around them, they kind of look like this, especially if it's a bit misty up in the hills. Okay, so I've kind of done my top row, and then I'm going to keep coming down, because these are not mountains, they're just lots of rolling hills in the background. And that's why you want kind of different shapes, because you just want to keep varying what you've got. And if you come down and you think, oh, I wanted something in between, just go back in. And that will work fine. So these need to come to, if you look at my one over here, my heels come down to about his waist. Yeah. So I think I just want a bit more over here. I'm just going to use that bit. Well, in fact, I could go. No, I can't go that way up. I'll need the other side of it. Do that one. I need some colour around the gold club. There. So very quickly, that's all my mountains done. And it is quite random. And I'm just going to extend some colour down around him. And don't forget to turn your blending pad, because you'll use up all the colour on one bit, and then there's still lots more colour left. Okay, so there he is done. And then I need some ground around him. So for that, I actually prefer to use paintbrush or a water brush. And again, just pick up some colour. And actually, there's probably enough sitting there on my glass mat. So I take my water brush, and so this is my one that sometimes it seems like almost no water comes out of it, and just kind of go across either side of him. Just create some kind of something for him to be standing on. We're going to put some more detail into that in a minute. And then I'm going to take a black ink pad, just put a tiny bit down on my mat, and I want some brown as well to mix with that. Not very juicy ink pad, my brown. It's had a lot of use. Let's pick that up. Just want kind of a muddy grey colour. And I just kind of want to dot in impression of some sort of bushes and trees at the back there. Just kind of in the foothills, around the back of the golf course. Yeah? So that's all we're doing. And if you want to put some bit more detail in, you can. Make it look like there's some trees there. If you're anything like me, if you try and put too much detail in, you end up with something that really doesn't look right. So just kind of splodge it about. And don't forget, they do need to go behind him. So do go right up to him. And down the left hand side, I kind of wanted to have them coming around behind him a bit, just to kind of frame him at the edge. So there we are. I've literally just dabbed with my brush. Put some more ink in there. And I'm going to take some more of my brown ink and kind of bring that in and put some more lines in the golf course here, just to give a bit more texture, particularly in the foreground. You want a little bit more colour, a bit more vibrancy. Just kind of blend the two in together. Come down to the middle. Literally almost scribbling, yeah, just side to side. And then the fun part comes, because now you take the mask off. Now, make sure you've gone as much up to him as you want to. Yeah, particularly between his legs. Yeah, you might want to make sure you've got a little bit of darker colour. Just give some shadow around his feet. And then you take your mask off. Now, I haven't stamped him in there yet, but I'm going to. I probably should have done. So, let me get my stamp. And I want... Now, my preference, if I'm stamping something to colour, is to use a hybrid ink pad. And just create a black line. So, it's a see-through stamp, so I can see where I'm putting it. And it's only a small stamp, so I'm just going to line it up by eye. So you might want to stamp it first and then put your mask over, but do make sure your ink is dry before you put the mask on top. Sometimes the glue can react with the ink. There we are. That's fine. I might want a bit extra colour coming in around him at the back there. There we are. So I can put that in the water brush even. Put some shadow behind him. Right, so then you need to really decide how vibrantly you want to paint him. So that's entirely up to you. I went for something quite sort of a suggestion of shading rather than really vibrant colours. So, but let's bring some more of this green in from this pad, one that I used for the edge. And I'm going to use a water brush, and I'm going to give him quite a bright shirt. I'm just going to go in that. I'm going to get a little bit black as well, just to tone it down and give me some dark areas. And the stamp shows you where the creases are, and those are going to be darker. So just, again, almost just dabbing it in with the very tip of my water brush. Okay, and then I can go back to some more vibrant colour, give him a nice green top. And one of the reasons I like using a water brush is that you don't suddenly run out of colour. It fades because you gradually get more and more water in with it. So that's his top. I think his trousers I'm going to do in a kind of darker, muddier green colour. I'm just going to pick some black up on my brush here, mix it with my green, and then I can go in over his trousers. And where I've already put the colour in, it'll put another layer in, so they'll seem darker. Down the inside of his leg there, I want it darker. That's that. And I want it really dark on his belt line. There we are. Now I want my gold cloth. I'm going to pretend it's a wood. I'm going to put a bit of brown in there. Okay, and then I want some really, really, really faded brown. Really, really faded. Just to put some skin tone in. And there's almost no colour on the brush. And then I think I'll go back to the green, some green for his hat, but I'm going to make it really light. And if you decide you want some bits darker, just go and pick up some more of the dark colour. It will just all blend together. And I just need a bit of colour just under there, under the club. There we are. Okay, so it's a lovely stamp, really clean lines to follow, and there he is on his golf course in the Lake District, I like to think. Okay, not a lot of flat ground in the Lake District. There's bound to be somewhere there's a golf course, or sometimes you actually get the flat ground up on the high ground, but you can still see lots of hills in the distance. There we are. So that's our golfer, and that's how I made that topper. So let's have a look at now at the sentiment. So I've got that here somewhere. Got my glass of water out of the way. I've got everything I needed out before I started, and then I've buried it. So bear with me a moment. Right, so I've found my cut foil in emboss die, and if I bring this up to the camera, there you see it's got lots of these raised flat areas, and if I was foiling they'd be applying foil if I was using that with my Go Press and foil, but these are actually where the ink's going to be. Okay, so let's put that back down there. So I thought I'd use my Versacolor pigment ink. Okay, and I'm going to pick it up on my blending tool, and I'm going to put it onto my die. Actually, I should have done that on my scrap paper, shouldn't I? Oh. Let me have a quick clean there, otherwise I'll end up with green ink on everything. So just on here, I'm just going to pick that up off my mat and use it. Now I can see the green ink on there. I can see it's heavier in some places than others. Now I did have a go at doing this and going directly from the ink pads, and as you can see on here, it didn't really sort of, I was using two different colours and it kind of went speckly. I got harsh lines, wasn't very happy with the effect. So if you want strong colour, that's fine. You can take your ink pad in, but then I suggest you use your blending tool and just even it out. Okay, and if I do want some blue on that, I can do a bit of blue. Do that, and again I'm just going to pounce with the blending tool. They call this tapping pouncing, and that will just kind of even out the blend. Right, so I've got that. Oops. So this is only a little die, so I'm just going to transfer it onto my cutting pad. I'm going to get some card. Now I also find these do work slightly better with some thicker card. So somewhere I've got some thicker card. Oh, it's over there. Right. So I'm just going to cut a piece of this piece of card. Again, I'm going to put that on top, and I am going to use a piece of tape just to stop it moving too much, and then I'm going to roll it through the die cutting machine. It's stuck to the plate, so that's fine. Let me just move the it cut so well, it came out so it stuck to the cutting plate. There we are, 1 centimetre. And then I'm just going to give my die a good wipe with some kitchen paper. Definitely was ink on there. dry clean. Sentiment done. So that's really all we needed for that card. And I say for this one, I literally just stamped him and just put a bit of grounding underneath him. Okay, but coloured in the same way. So my other two cards, I've used more of the Delightful sentiments. So I've used it. This is the amazing one. And they're great fun sentiments. They really kind of make themselves the centerpiece of the card. Okay, so this one I've done on black card, and this one I've done on white card. And for this one, I've actually used some sparkly inks I've got. There we are. So they kind of reflect the light. It's not really. It's the wrong time of day for where I am for that to reflect properly. Oh, there we are. Okay. So again, no foiling involved, but dyes that you can foil with. Okay. And on this one, I've cut them in black and used gilding waxes. So let's have a look at that technique next. Now I used some die cut letters for my R in the middle, just normal die cuts. But I thought about it afterwards. I thought, oh, I've got the Couture Creations cut foil emboss letters. I could use those and use gilding wax on those. So that's what I'm going to do now. Okay. So somewhere here I have some bits of card and some letters. There's one of my bits of card. Now again, if you've got a set of these, or you're buying a set of these, they will be shiny ones, silvery shiny ones. But again, these were a pre-production run. Let me just put that to one side. Okay. Now I find with these, 2 layers of 250 GSM card works best because you get a nice deep emboss, and you can stick the two together so that you've got something with a bit more guts resistance when you're trying to rub your gilding wax or whatever medium you're using into it. Let me just try and get the camera to focus on that. Probably going to need to put something behind it. Let's try that. Let me zoom the camera instead. There we are. So you can see the emboss I've got on that. It's a piece of cardboard. There we are. That's my little R, and that's the kind of emboss I've got on it. Okay, so put the camera back to normal. Focus on my desk. There we are. So obviously I've already cut the R, and I've got these 2 layers stuck together because I wanted the glue to dry. So, but yeah, you just, other than using 2 layers of card, just die cut them as normal. So I've got my R, so I can have my A and my E. I'm going to tape them down. Whoops. Because I always tape dies when I'm using more than one at a time. Okay, just a little bit more on this side. Okay, so I just need to run those through the die cutting machine with my 2 layers of card. So I'm going to do them cutting side up. That's how I normally work. So let's untape them. bottom layer off. That pokey tool, but not magnet. Okay, now I'm pushing 2 layers of card out of here, so that's it. Okay, so they're kind of stuck together, but I do still need to glue them. So your layers of card will come apart. Try and remember which one's the top one, put that to one side. And I usually put the glue on the lower one and then put them back together. And they do slot together quite easily because of the embossing on them. So there we are. I'll put my top one to one side. Okay. Put those back on my magnetic storage sheet so I don't lose them. And then you just want a little bit of glue. Somewhere I had something I could make messy. And I have obviously buried it, so I'll just use a piece of scrap card. So I'm just going to put some glue on my bottom ones. I tend to put it in the grooves, unless it's right in the middle. Okay, and then it's just a matter of bringing the 2 layers together. As I say, you want a glue that gives you a bit of wiggle time, but then they do kind of just, they want to stick in the right place. There's my E. My A. So even if I'm using thicker card, and even if it's too thick for me to cut them at the same time, I'd still cut 2 layers and stick them together. Right, so there's my E and my A, and my R I did earlier, so that the glue is now dry. So let's show you how I use these with the gilding waxes. Let's get rid of some of this. So I've got my gilding waxes, and my preference is the Pebeo gilding waxes, and I've also got some Cosmic Shimmer product there, so I might try some of that in a minute. And my preference when I'm working with gilding waxes is to work on a piece of wax paper, but you might have a media mat, or you could just work on your glass mat, but you've got some work then to clear up afterwards. So where's my R is here. So I want to just take a very little amount of gilding wax, and I quite like mixing up all the colours. Don't mix up your lids. Okay, so, and I find some of these are kind of, wetter isn't the right word because they're a wax, but some of them are softer than others. And the silver I find is quite soft, so I literally touch it with my finger. And if I take that straight to my card, it's going to create blobs everywhere. So I just smooth that out on my wax paper until I've got almost nothing coming off my finger. When I've got almost nothing coming off my finger, then I go near my card and just very gently, because I don't want to go very much into the recessed areas. You will a bit, but it's better to do that. Let me zoom the camera in because you can't really see what I'm doing. Bring the camera down. Let me get some lighting. Bear with me. There we are. So I think you can just about see what I'm doing now. So just a tiny bit of the gilding wax on my finger and smooth it out on my wax paper until there's almost nothing comes off my finger, and then take it to the card just very gently. Okay, and then I've done some silver, and then I'm going to just pick up a tiny bit of the, what colour is this? This is antique gold, and again rub that until I've got a covering on my finger but there's almost nothing coming off, and then I'm going to go back in with that, and that's a warmer colour, so if I want to give the impression that something's a bit corroded, that works well, especially mixed in with the silver. Okay, and then I can even brighten it up with a bit of the gold. Oops. Okay, so I've got that. There we are, and I will polish that in a minute. I just want to let it kind of dry out for a minute or two. So let me get my other letters and get my E. Okay, so let me start with the gold this time on this one. Again, I find the golds, yeah, none of them are the same consistency basically. Yeah, you can't see what I'm doing because the camera hasn't focused. There we are. So literally in there, wipe it on my wax paper and then very, very gently onto my letter. Let's bring that up to the camera for you. Ooh, there we go. Okay, so again I shall polish that one in a minute. But let's also have a look at other mediums. So we've seen ink, we've seen gilding wax. Let's put the lids on these. Just bear with me while I clean up my hands. Okay, so yeah, just got the gilding wax off my hands and I've just sorted out. So I've got some Cosmic Shimmer gilding polish here, they call this, rather than the gilding wax. It's a water-based product, and they come with an applicator sponge. But you know, whatever you've got. So you might be putting it on a finger, you might be using, you know, one of your blending tools. But again, I like to just even it out so there's not much happening on my wax paper. Let me zoom the camera again. Not sure that's... there. Right. Try and get the camera to focus. I am zoomed in as much as I can be. So I'm just going to very gently go over the surface of this. And obviously I'm on black card and it's quite a dark colour. So if you're not careful, it's not going to look like a lot's happening. But don't go in too heavy. You want to go over it lots of times lightly to build up your colour. There. And that's what we've ended up with. I think I'm going going to zoom out just a little bit. There we are. So, you know, you could do white card and ink on a blending sponge to do this. You know, whatever products you've got, there's so many around these days, but it's another way of using these what are advertised as cut foil and embossed dies without foil and without a foiling machine, just using what you already have. Okay, so I'm literally going to wipe my fingers and then recap. Okay, so the final step in this process is to give our gilded or polished letters polish with some kitchen paper, and this is really when you really want the 2 layers, because you don't want to be bending these by mistake. So zoom the camera again so it's maximum, trying to get in the way. So I'm just clean piece of kitchen paper, just going around and polishing up, and the gilding wax that's right on the surface comes up really shiny. Really gives you that kind of old worn look. So there's my E. There we are. So you can see it's now got some really polished bits. I'll do the R as well. Now, and you might polish it up and decide you want more gilding polish, gilding wax or gilding polish on it, and that's fine. You can add some more and leave it to dry out and then polish it again. Yeah, I think the polished edges possibly show up better on the R. There we are. Okay, and let me just do the A. There we are. Okay, so let me bring my cards back in. So we've got our black card and our sentiment cut in black, sorry, our black card with our gilding waxes. Okay, and again, this isn't one colour of gilding wax. I've put down one colour and then bits of another and mixed them together. I like just mixing them on my finger really. Okay, so that's that card, and with my watches in the background here. And then I've got my version where I've used my ink on white card, and then I've got my pocket watches in the background, and this is on craft card. And then I've got just my papers from the Gentleman's Emporium collection, and just my little tag with my golfer, just very simply coloured in. And then I've got my golfer again, but on a bigger topper, my mountains, remember, made with the mask. And then, as I say, very simply, almost monochrome coloured in on this one. And my cut foil and emboss without foil, sentiment just inked very lightly. Okay, thank you for watching.